Hello, everybody. I'm Heath Thompson. So as I mentioned before, I started selling on Amazon in 2006, and I did have around 400 ASINs. They were all related to chess products, and I sold them on Amazon and eBay and my own website until 2011. And then I didn't do anything else with Amazon until 2017. Hello, visitor Stamper from North Carolina. I've got a friend who lives there. It's a nice part of the world. And in 2017, a customer who'd bought some chess sets from me was having trouble selling on Amazon and couldn't sell any of his sports bags. And he hadn't sold anything for 9 months, and he just wanted help rewriting his listings. So I did it, and he sold out of his sports bags within around 6 weeks of putting the new content on. But then he'd had enough, and he didn't want to be involved with Amazon anymore. I'm not sure where his journey has taken him. But suddenly I got a lot more inquiries for copywriting, and I'd been a copywriter for sales, things like faxes back in the day and before emails and direct sales marketing. I've been doing that since 1994, and I've been in sales and marketing since 1984. So I've done quite a lot. And when I came to Austria, I missed this cut and thrust of selling. So to cut a long story short, I was setting up a telemarketing sales company when I got a flood of interest about Amazon things, and I just went that way. So I kind of fell into the Amazon journey, and my customers for copywriting, when I had an agency, they kept asking me to do their PPC. So I got involved with that, and I've been doing that for 8 years now. So I've got around 400 PPC students, and I also teach Amazon agencies to do PPC, and sometimes their staff to do it. So hopefully you will feel today that you're in good hands. The content that we've got here, the first thing is that I at the end of this presentation, I want you as people to understand more about what the Amazon algorithm is trying to do and the challenges that it has in matching your products to the buyer that's hoping to buy something. Because a lot of the time it's not taken into account, and it can really make a difference in how you set up your product and how you target the keywords in PPC. So we're going to be looking at that. The next, we're going to be looking at structuring the keywords within ad campaigns. So right now, I'm not going to be going into so much detail about how to start an ad campaign and how to build it up. You will see at the end of this presentation, there's a special offer by the people at AMZ, which includes one of my basic beginner PPC courses that goes into building the structure of your ad campaigns, exploring the different ad types, understanding search term agreements, reports and things like that. Here, we're going to be looking at a level where you don't really need to know the methods. Just by understanding what's happening will help you to understand the right direction to go with your ad campaigns. We're going to also look at the PPC metrics. So when you're in your Amazon ad dashboard, where you will have all your campaigns and where you will add new ones, there's a bunch of what we call metrics across the top, like ACOS, number of orders, click-through rates, and so on. They each tell a story of what's happening between the buyer and your product and how that interaction is affecting things. So we have to do a little bit of detective work to truly understand what the story is that's being told, and then we know what to do. So when we start understanding this, the decisions that we make within our ads or with our products are much simpler and easier to do because we understand what's going on. So that's the chief thing that I want to get across here. And then I'm going to leave you with around 3 hacks or tips to drive more traffic to your listings that hardly anybody knows about. And in the 8 years that I've been doing the PPC, I've been studying the algorithm, both the organic algorithms and the PPC algorithms, religiously. I've done things like degrees, and I've done more work studying the Amazon algorithms to try and find what makes them tick. So you're going to find out and discover some of those things in the traffic hacks. Then we will have some final thoughts and questions and answers. and a little bit of information about this special offer that the people watching this webinar can take, because there's some fantastic things there. So how Amazon thinks. The most important aspect of launching a product on Amazon or putting a relaunch for a product is that the algorithm completely understands what your product is. So it does this in a number of ways. It looks at the title, the generic keywords, which used to be called the back-end keywords. These are in the section where you would put the price and the title and the bullets and so on of your listing. You've either got 1 or up to 5 sections of keywords that you can put in there. Then it's looking at the content for the parts of that content that describe what your product is. So we call that keywords, and the algorithm thinks of it in a descriptive way. And also the category that you initially put your product in is important. So these products, sorry, my earphones coming out a little bit whilst I'm talking. The title and the generic keywords and the descriptives, they're in order of importance to the algorithm. So it looks at your title first, and then it indexes the back-end keywords to get an understanding of what your product is and whether it aligns correctly with the search phrase that someone's typed in. Now, an issue that I've seen with agencies is a lot of them will say, if you've got a big spreadsheet of keywords, maybe there's 1,000 keywords on there, you put your best ones, the most relevant ones with the highest search volume, into your title, into the bullets and the description of the product, and then anything that's left goes into the back-end keywords. But the problem with that is the back-end keywords ends up with a lot of unimportant keywords in there that really aren't relevant to your product. And that can make a huge difference to how you rank on Amazon. So this idea of just putting as many keywords in a listing as possible is about indexing, and all your written content indexes apart from any A+ content. That gets indexed by search engines like Yahoo and Google, but not by Amazon. Amazon's still looking at the original description box, which has up to 2,000 characters. So I hope that makes sense, but we will keep going and see what you think. So the rest of the information, like your sales content, like this is a premium quality product and so on, this is just noise to the algorithm. It's not really interested in it. And in the last 4 or 5 years, the algorithm on Amazon has changed. You can no longer keyword stuff a listing to try and get eyes on your product. The algorithm's not interested in that. It basically wants to know what you're selling, and then it wants to know if it's going to sell. So we'll come to this in a moment, because there is what's called a honeymoon period. There's one you probably have heard about, which is a honeymoon period when you're first launching a product, and there's another one that hardly anybody knows about, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So in the first 2 to 3 weeks of listing a product, the algorithm has to understand whether this is going to be the new best thing for that niche or that category. So it inflates your rank. So you might appear on page 1 suddenly, organically, for some keywords. And it's testing to see how well your product will sell compared to other products of a similar launch age and compared to other more established products. And then after that 2 to 3 week period, it's going to set your rank for those various search terms. And then you have to increase that by being clever about the keywords you have in your listing and how you target them in your ad campaigns. So it's basing your rank initially off the number of clicks that it gets with a new product, but mostly off the sales velocity or the number of sales that it gets. So when I calculated this, and I studied it over a 3-year period, over 95% of the ranking of a product is down to how many sales it gets, not anything else that you do. So you could have a product that has 1,000 keywords stuffed into it in one way, shape or other, but doesn't get any sales, and you're not going to rank very well. Or you could have very few keywords in there and you're selling and selling, and the algorithm is going to give you a good rank because it simply looks at the search term that someone types in And then it gives you a rank based off that. And the more you sell, the higher your rank is going to go. So this kind of alignment or mapping of the correct keywords to your product is absolutely essential that it's right. So for example, somebody might be selling a tote bag, which someone might use for shopping, but they then add in their title things like beach bag, travel bag, picnic bag, those kind of things, hoping to just grab some more traffic. But it can confuse the algorithm as to what you're really selling and who your target buyer is. And if there's a gray area in that, then the search terms that you get that activate your ads and then you're paying for the clicks, they can be not super relevant to your type of product. And so we're going to come to something in a moment where there's some bad advice on YouTube with some sellers talking about targeting keywords in a different way, which I'll come to. So the Amazon algorithm is interested in the search terms people are using to find the products and not necessarily the keywords that you've got in your listing. Okay, Manpreet, I see that. I have a few products on Amazon, but nothing is selling. I'm not doing paid marketing. Okay, well, you might find this interesting then. So one of the things we've got to ask ourselves is, what kind of keywords do we target? There are seed keywords and there are long tail keywords. So we're going to look at those now, and you will start to see an issue that the algorithm has. So here, if we look at the keyword wall decor, let's say you're selling a framed picture of a mountain goat, and you look at the keywords for mountain picture and mountain goat, and you can see there are only 100 to 200 search volume a month. But wall decor, which is also applicable, has 150,000 searches per month. You'd think, I want to put that in my title and I want to attract as many of those 149,000 as possible. The issue is, as you can see over the right side, when there's a seed keyword like wall decor, which usually just has two words within its phrase, and I know I've got here mountain goat, but if it was like picture of a mountain goat, that would be classed as a long tail keyword because there's more words within the phrase. The algorithm doesn't know what someone's looking for when they type in wall decor, and they might not know either. So you can see on the page of results here over on the right, there's things like metal flowers that you put on the wall, plastic plants, love signs, shelves, and things like that. So these can, the wall decor and the seed keywords have to be chosen very selectively, because as you can see the picture of the mountains over on the left, you start competing against bigger sellers, and you're having to rank better to compete with them. Whereas if you're only targeting and competing against your own direct competitors who are selling the same thing, then you've got more of a chance of getting your ads or getting organic positioning higher up the top of the page. When it's less clear to the algorithm what somebody's searching for, then you're going to be competing against people selling in different categories, and often ones that have got many more sales. So by all means, target those bigger search volume keywords in your ad campaigns if you're doing them, but I would do it at a low bid to begin with until you can see the information, whether you're getting sales for it or whether it's costing you a lot of money. And you might have noticed the word subjective versus objective. So if you're selling a subjective product like art, the shoppers tend to look further than page 1 to see whether they can find something they like. In my experience, they can go as far as page 3 to page 5. So that if you've got a subjective product, that can really affect which keywords you target, because even if your ads appear on a page 2 or 3 at a lower bid, they can still be worthwhile and lucrative. Whereas an objective product, something like a Bluetooth speaker, people tend not to look much further than the top listings, or certainly not further than the top half of page 1. So you will see later on in this presentation, when we look at the top of search in ad campaigns, the difference it makes to the click-through rates. Does the same strategy apply to KDP books? I've actually got some books that I'm selling and advertising on Amazon. And yes, the same strategy applies there. The basic ad campaigns for the books are virtually identical to the basic ad campaigns for regular products. There are some differences once you get outside those basics, but yeah. So this is what I was coming to next with the YouTube kind of advice. The Amazon algorithm is including the buying intent. So this means how likely is a person going to buy right at this moment when they're shopping? And it considers that as to determine whether it's going to direct the ad through a broad, a phrase, or an exact match ad campaign. So when we're looking at something like Google or Microsoft ads, they're not interested in whether somebody buys a product or not. So there's a lot of advice that comes from these type of ads on search engines. And the most important ones that I see on particularly YouTube on free advice is the waterfall cascade system, where you begin with an automatic campaign to farm keywords and find new search terms that you can then target. And you would put in a broad campaign. And then the ones that do well, you put in a phrase campaign. And if they do well, you put in an exact campaign. You're kind of funneling them down to control your money. But if you do that in Amazon, it doesn't have the same effect because the buying intent is part of that process. It's quite loosely matched, but I'll explain why it's an issue. You can see at the bottom of the slide here that broad ad campaigns, they reach around half of the audience, the shopping audience, that the manual campaigns target. And the phrase and exacts do the other half. So if you're only targeting a certain keyword in exact match campaign, you're missing potentially 80% of the shoppers. So it's important in your ads to try and target all three types so that you've got full coverage. So if the Amazon algorithm is looking at whether somebody buys on their mobile phone or the desktop, or whether they buy at 3 PM or at night when they get home, and what time of day in the week do they buy, all these patterns determine whether it thinks they're ready to purchase or not. And the less likely it thinks they are, the more it's going to match a search term to a keyword that you have in a broad ad campaign. And usually with broad, the search term, which you'll see in a moment, is different than the keyword that you're targeting. So we've got a mini summary here. We've looked at how the Amazon algorithm views your product for descriptive words that we call keywords. And it's really interested in just knowing what it is that you're selling. Then it tests your product, and where the bestseller might have, say, 5,000 to 10,000 keywords associated with it, your product might only have 100 in the first week of its life. And then only maybe 5 or 10 of those keywords are in the top 5 pages. So really, you've got to sell as much as you possibly can for those search terms. And we'll look at that in a moment. Visitor asks, what if the product is a niche product where the market is not that big? Well, this example would be of the mountain goat picture, which had 197 searches a month. That's probably quite a niche. Unfortunately, you are going to get less traffic, but you're still going to be competing against people that are selling the same kind of product, but probably fewer sellers. So the payoff is that you don't have as much competition, but the negative is that you don't have as many people searching for it. So you might have to be a little bit more creative with the type of ads that you're doing. For example, if it was a mountain goat picture, you might want to target your ads on some mountaineering books, just as an example, or goat farming products or something like that, that just looks a little bit outside the box. So you can do things there. I have a few products on Amazon, says Manpreet, but nothing is selling. I'm not doing paid marketing. Yes, the paid marketing actually is a great thing because it just puts your product above the competitor's organic placement. So when you're first looking on a mobile phone, the top 2 products on there are usually advertisements. And on a desktop, it's usually the top 4, depending on the category. So the first things people see are what's advertised and not necessarily what is the best seller. So to use your ads, there's an important element of, for my customers, and I manage over 1,000 ASINs for people of a huge variety of different categories. I'm using the advertising campaigns and the keywords that I'm targeting to try and boost the organic rank so that we're never too reliant on our ads. You really want your ads to be bringing in around 40%, 30% of the business, and the organic to be bringing the rest. And quite often it's the other way around. So yeah, with advertisements, you can help the algorithm to find, because of the ads, rather than just organic placement, it's looking at your ads and thinking, okay, the search term doesn't quite match the keyword that you're targeting, but it will activate your ad and the person clicks on it and buys it. So for that new search term, it's a little bit like putting a seed of a plant into your garden and watching it grow, and your ads help it grow. And the algorithm will start like aligning other branches of search terms to your product. And before you know it, you've got 1,000 search terms and keywords aligned with your product rather than just 100. And this is how it grows. And it's a quick way of doing that with your ads. So we're just going to look quickly at a few of the issues. So Hazel, I just want to clarify from previous slides, are you recommending the use of broad for keywords instead of phrase or exact? I'm actually recommending you use all three. So whenever I'm doing some new ad campaigns for customers, if it might be a new set of keywords, I do it with all three. I do a separate ad campaign. We'll look at the structure a little bit shortly, but I will do a broad campaign and a separate phrase campaign and a separate exact campaign, so I can control where the money is going. And I'll just put the same keywords in at the same bids and just see what the algorithm does. And then I'm waiting for the next 7 days or a couple of weeks and just see what the data shows me. And then I base my decisions off. So I come from a little bit of a different perspective than some sellers will be. Some people will try and control the algorithm and say, these are the keywords that we're going to use, and there's the spreadsheet, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try and force the algorithm to do that for us. Whereas I try and find ways that the algorithm is enticed into advertising our product and then delivering this data to us that we can see, okay, so this set of search terms and this branch of keywords is what the customers are liking when they see our product. So I hope that helps. So the algorithm clusters keywords together in groups, which is something that not everybody is aware of. So if we look at the following phrase, silicone dog brush for hairy dogs, which was a product that I was once doing an audit of, and I thought it was quite fun. The algorithm is looking at this keyword in a way that we might not expect. So it looks at the root part of the keyword. So in this case, that would be dog brush. And then it looks at the modifying part of that search phrase, which would be silicone and hairy, because they tell it what type of dog brush the shopper is looking for. You've got a hairy dog there, you visitor stamper. I also like dogs. So when the algorithm is looking at a keyword like this, if you like, it's got a pathway, a number of pathways for each one. So it would have a set of pathways for the word dog, a set of other pathways for the word brush, and how it looks at the whole set determines which products down those pathways it is actually going to show for the ad. So it could be, just for example, see, my nose is running, I've got hay fever at the moment, that the algorithm is going to show a set of products, and your product might be one of those, but and the next time someone searches on the same day, it shows a different set of products, simply because of how it's looking through the keywords and finding the products. So it could be that if you're in a situation where silicone dog brush for hairy dogs is a keyword that's costing you quite a lot of money and not giving you the results that you want, you can change the order around And you might get the same kind of pathways and the same results in the end, but it costs you less money to do it. So it's always worth testing these things. So you might have dog brush from silicon for hairy dogs as a keyword, and it might be less money. And the rest of that like the conjunctions and for and so on, these are just noise to the algorithm and they get ignored. And it's an important point when you're trying to determine which keywords to target, as you will see on this coming slide here. So if I look here at this set of 4 keywords, red car polish for Ferraris, and there's a couple of alternatives there. They have a search volume of between 300 and 1,000. I've actually made those figures up, but just to make a point, they have a total search volume of 2,500 per month. Now, what a lot of people don't appreciate is that the algorithm is viewing those keywords as a single keyword. So it's seeing one keyword with a search volume of 2,500 rather than red car polish Ferrari cars at 300. So there are some issues and there are some benefits associated with this. You might have, say, a benchmark. If you're looking at a list of 300 keywords to target, you might think, I don't want to target all of them at the beginning. Let's just look at something that has a search volume of more than 2,000. And in that case, you would have missed these 4 keywords looking at them separately. But as a group, collectively, being that they are the same keyword, they do have that search volume that would fit into your benchmark. And if you're doing that and competitors aren't, then they can be missing some keywords that you can be taking advantage of. Now, another issue is if you've got ad campaigns running already, and let's say you have these 4 keywords within the same ad campaign, you're giving yourself 4 times the amount of work that you don't really need to do. So they can look the same, but the amount of times that I audit people's ad campaigns and I look through the ad groups and see the same keyword there, you just pick the ones that do well and get rid of the ones that don't do well, and you're still driving the same amount of traffic. So these are things that you need to look at. So when you're picking some new keywords, either for a new listing or just to target for a current one, you want to take out any of these non-descriptive words like for and with and, just remove those. And anything that has a plural like cars, then you can remove that, as in the spelling of it. And then you put them in alphabetical order and look at their search volume, and then you decide which ones to target. So I hope that is clear. The biggest issue that I find is if you do a negative keyword. So I don't know whether everybody knows what this is, but if you want to stop your ad from appearing for a certain search term, like red car polish, then you would put that as a negative match keyword. So let's say one of these keywords is doing very poorly for you, and you're going to put it into a negative match to block it from showing, and the other 3 are doing well, so you keep them going. You're actually going to block all 4 of them. So I see this quite regularly in people's campaigns that I'm auditing, where they've just been too liberal with trying to put a big list of negative keywords in there, and they're also blocking other ones that they can be doing well at. So you have to be super careful when you're doing negative keywords. So I mentioned this beginner's course that I do for PPC management, which we'll talk about briefly at the end. That goes into this in a lot more detail. So just briefly, things to consider. You might miss some keywords if you're not looking at these properly. You can accidentally negative match more keywords than you think you are doing. And your ad performance can be different if you just rearrange the keyword order sometimes. So these things are what you should be testing. And family groups of keywords, in my experience, they tend to help one another. So what I mean by that is keywords in an ad campaign. Sometimes you get you get agencies that just put one keyword in one ad campaign to control the cost. And I do that sometimes. It depends on what you're trying to do as to why you would do it. But that keyword on its own lives or dies off its own performance. So some months the search volume might be down and some months it might be better. And the fluctuations of how well it does will go up and down as well. And then it puts more of a risk on one keyword. So you might be bid managing it more regularly than you would need to. So if the red car polish keyword had red car polish for BMWs and for Ferraris in the same ad group, those other keywords might perform whilst it's not doing so good itself. And what they do is they maintain this, this quality score of the ad campaign. So the algorithm is judging your ads with a set of performance indicators as to how well they are performing. And so how well it gives you ad impressions and where they are on the page can be affected by how well your ad campaign's doing. So we're also going to look at this in a little bit of detail when you can have too many keywords in an ad campaign. So reverse ASIN, I'm going to go through this in a moment using some AMZScout software. When you're first launching a product, you want to be doing one of these checks at least twice a week, because you want to establish that the algorithm truly knows what your product is. And to do that, you want to see what keywords it is mapping to your listing. And if there are any issues, then you want to try and address that. So if you're selling something like an orange set of binoculars, and you're starting seeing that you're getting children's binoculars on your search term reports, and the algorithm is starting aligning that with your product, you don't want that to happen because it's not what you're selling. So it highlights that there's a bit of confusion. When we're looking at growing the product and we're getting more sales, the algorithm's aligning more keywords to your product, which is great, but there's key areas that we want to look at. So just before I share my screen and I go to the software, the top 16 is mostly the page one on mobile devices. So tablets tend to be a bit like a desktop, but on mobile phones, they can be just the top 16. The top 25 is usually the top half of the desktop page one, and the top 50 is usually page one. I mentioned these because of any keywords that are just slightly outside of these, with a little bit of support from advertising, like targeting those keywords, say from position 51 to 60 with exact campaigns, can just be enough to boost that keyword's organic rank if you get sales onto page one or onto the top of page one for mobile devices. So the reverse ASIN check is something that I use a lot for my customers. And it also gives direction as to how the algorithm is seeing the product. And sometimes it can give you new marketing opportunities if you're not aware that a certain set of buyers are using a different type of search term than you expected. Now, this second honeymoon period is for search terms, and this is throughout the life of a product. So any new search terms that lead to a sale, your product is going to be tested for, and its visibility or organic rank is going to be raised artificially. So let's say you're selling the red car polish and someone has gone for red car polish for Mini Cooper, and you've not had a sale for that in the past. So the Mini Cooper keyword will now be aligned with your product, and the algorithm has to work out where you should be ranking. And it can't make that decision unless it knows how much you're selling. So there's in my experience, and I measured this over 4 years with about 130 different accounts. There's a 7 to 10 day window where once you get past that window, if you've not done anything to get more sales, your rank is going to plummet. So if you can quickly find in your search term reports or your search term tabs, which we're going to look at, if you can find new search terms to target, then do that as quickly as possible. So for my customers, I try and do it the same day that they happen. Then I know we've got the biggest window of opportunity we can have. We've got 7 to 10 days to get additional sales. So I'm pushing video ads and regular ads using that specific keywords and trying to make the most of this opportunity as a springboard to higher ranking. So we've covered that. Basically, that explains how the algorithm is looking at the keywords and how you should do it. But here are some ways of how to find keywords in maybe novel ways that you haven't considered. So you've got your search term reports, and here's an example of one where I've just changed the actual keywords because this was from a customer search term report. So over on the blue, you can see the keywords that they were targeting. So this was toy natural mostly from a broad campaign, and the customer search term that led to sales were over in the red column. So those are ones that I would identify as potential targets to push and drive more sales to. The other place you can find them is in the search term tab, which is in the ad group. So you can see in the middle where it says ad group phrase, the fourth one down in the little bar is search terms. So, and that opens up to the left at the bottom there. You can see the search terms, which are on the left-hand side. You might not be able to read it because of the small text. And in the middle, the keyword coffee carafe. So the second one down, I can see coffee carafes for keeping hot is the search term, which activated the ad through the keyword coffee carafes. And that's had, in 30 days, 21 orders at a conversion rate of 6%. So I'll come to your question in a moment. So the conversion rate is really important for finding new search terms to target. So you want to find search terms with multiple sales, 3 or more in a 30-day period, with a higher than average for your product conversion rate. So I can see the second one from the bottom has had 10 sales at 10% conversion rate, which is great. And that's higher than the average 6% for this campaign. So that would be a keyword that I would definitely want to be targeting. So let's have a look. First question, will this be available tonight to watch? Unfortunately, can't stay for much longer. Okay, I don't know if it's going to be available tonight. I think it's going to be tomorrow when it's going to be available, but it will be available for you to watch it. So the technical people might be able to answer that. And are these reports in Amazon Seller? Yes, there is a report section over on the left-hand side. And when you open it up, there's a few drop-down sections where you can choose search term reports. So that was on the previous page. And the one we're looking at now is actually in the ad itself, in the ad group part of the campaign. So the other areas are great. The other areas are typing into Amazon. When you start typing in like silicone dog brush, it comes up with the most popular terms underneath it. So you might find new ones to use there. And then there is this software that from AMZScout that does the searches for you. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I can't see the comments in the chat at the moment, so I'm trusting the fact that you can see this. So let me just go over. Yeah. So can you see the screen that I'm sharing, which is the website with AMZScout on the top? If you can't, just say no. Okay. So I'm going to keep talking then. So this is a reverse async for a product. So this is the async reference that Amazon gives to the product. And then you can see here the number of keywords that you want, basically not the number of keywords, the number of words within the keyword. So how long is the phrase you want? So I've gone for 2 words to 5 words, which is probably the most popular. And then you click the find keywords. I'll just get rid of this. It's there. And then you can see it brings up the keywords here for that product. And it tells you over on the right-hand side here, whether it's on page 1 for that and where it is on page 1. So if I just scroll over, you can see it tells you the organic rank is number 35. So if this was a product that I was selling, I would want to try and get this in the top half of page 1, in the top 25. So I would target that fire document bag as a keyword in my ad campaigns. And then it also tells you some really important information. I never had this when I was originally selling on Amazon. So this is really great. It tells you the trend of that keyword at this moment for the last 30 days. And you can click on a timeline that gives you an idea over a longer period of time what the search volume is for that keyword. Now, this is a fantastic thing if you're considering launching with one of these types of products. So when you're doing your product research, and if you're using this software, you can look at information and think, well, okay, I'm interested in doing a fireproof bag, but I'm a bit concerned about how much it's going to cost me per click. And then you see here, well, this keyword's only 28 cents per click on average, waterproof document pouch, 44 cents, and so on. That's really cheap for Amazon. You can often pay $3 per cost per click. So this information that you get can actually help you to determine some new products that you want to buy and to tick a few boxes and just confirm your decisions. Just to show you, if you wanted to do a keyword search, you would just click on this here to do the keyword search. And you can also track your keywords. So let's say you've got 10 keywords that you really want to do well for on your products and you're testing them with advertisements and you've got them in your listing. Then you can track your keyword and it will give you like a 30-day or a longer period of time where you can see on a graph how well your products performed for those keywords. And that gives you information back that can really be helpful on making strategies in your ad campaigns. And is everybody okay? This looks better than Publisher Rocket. I've had Publisher Rocket, and I can tell you this is a million times better than Publisher Rocket. So I had Publisher Rocket around 6 or 7 years ago, and it gives you very, very basic information. So this can be useful. What I will say is that if it's books that you're interested in, and the ASIN, which is the number that I had on the reverse ASIN test, which begins normally with a B and a 0 and then has about 7 or 8 figures after it. If it has a regular Amazon ASIN check, you can use it here. If it has a book ASIN, which normally starts with a number like 109, then this wouldn't normally do that. So, but there are a lot of books. The majority of books will have the right kind of ASIN to use with this software. So this is the keyword that I've already shown you, the keyword search software. You can also find useful keywords. Yes, the Publisher Rocket had the reverse ASIN when I was looking, but I didn't find it that helpful. It was very basic. So, but I have not used it for a few years. So you could be right. But here, if you're stuck for what kind of keywords to use, I've underlined some just as example by looking at people's titles. So we might have already gone for dog brush, but then I see shedding and de-shedding and shampoo is what's being used at the top. So there's a lot of ways that you can come up with a short list of keywords to use in a very, maybe within half an hour of doing it or less. So I want to talk briefly about keyword structuring in ad campaigns. Then we'll look at a summary of what we've discussed here before going on to the next bit. So it gets a little bit lighter going forwards. Hopefully you're not reaching for the headache tablets already. So the important thing that I want to get across here is you need to be aware or have the understanding of how your cash is flowing through the ad campaigns, and how they are set up can hinder or help you being profitable. So this is less to do with the keywords you're targeting or the bids you're making. It's to do with the actual physical structure of how you're putting the keywords in there. So hopefully this will become clearer in a moment. So there are two aspects regarding the keywords. The first one is the keyword density. That's basically how many keywords you've got in an ad campaign compared to the percentage of those that are seeing money from your campaign budget. And the keyword weighting means how important and relevant that keyword is to your product. So I've seen, for example, people will, they will kind of segregate their ad campaigns into search volumes. So they might say, anything that's got a search volume of over 10,000 keywords, we're going to put them in campaign A, and anything over 5,000 goes in campaign B. You don't want to be doing that, because generally what happens is only a minority of keywords within an ad group will be getting the money sufficiently to use for that keyword to perform effectively. So you might have 20 keywords in an ad campaign, but 2 of them are eating 90% of the budget. And you can be bid managing the other 18 keywords and thinking they're not performing brilliantly, but they're not given the chance because they're like the poor runt of the litter that never gets to the milk. So I'm going to come back to this a little bit when we talk about keyword migration. So the best way I've found of doing this is having small groups of keywords in an ad group. So I normally go for a 3 to 5 set of keywords in an ad group with a similar family feel to their keyword. So back to the red car polish, it would be red car polish for sports cars or for Ferraris or something like that. So that when one of them gets a sale, the others also can increase in rank as a kind of like a halo effect, I suppose you would call it. So just to reiterate, the keyword density is about having too many keywords in an ad campaign and not enough of those are seeing your money because there are hungry keywords that are taking everything. So you want to try and keep your ad campaign small. So if you've already got too many keywords in an ad campaign, then I will tell you what to do in a moment. Then the keyword weighting is having too high search volume keywords altogether. So that's why I like to think of them in groups. I might have a high search volume keyword with 1 or 2 lower search volume keywords there. But how you do it and what you do depends on the strategy. And that's not really what I'm talking about today. But most of your ad campaigns will follow what I've said. But sometimes you might want to do like what's called a gold panning campaign or a bargain hunter campaign, where you've got a lot of keywords in there. You don't care which ones are going to get any kind of action, as long as some of them do, and it's at an ultra low bid. And as soon as they start getting orders, then you get rid of all of the, I do it with 900 keywords in. If 10 of them have had orders, I get rid of 990 and do the process again for them, and then give these 10 more money if they've done well. Right. The structure that you want to have with your ad campaigns is 1 ad group per campaign and only 1 target type or match type in that. So by that I mean 1 ad group with either broad or phrase, not a mixture of both, or exact. You want to keep it to 1, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And if it's targeting other competitor products, you don't want to have the category target in there at the same time. So the more you can isolate these into their own campaigns, the cleaner and easier it is to manage. So for example, if you had 1 ad campaign and it has a broad phrase and exact set of ad groups in there, you can't dictate the flow of where your money's going, because that ad campaign is just directing it any way it sees fit. So the likelihood is that the broad campaign is going to take more of your budget, and the phrase and exact campaigns are not going to see as much of your money. So 1 campaign with 1 ad group in it is the best philosophy, and have fewer targets in it, as I've just been explaining. It gives you more control over your money. So the one last thing that refers back to what I was talking about earlier with the cascade and waterfall systems of moving keywords from 1 campaign to another is it's a bad idea to move any good keywords. So if you've seen a great keyword in broad campaign, you don't want to pause it in the broad campaign and put it in a phrase or exact. You need to keep it in the broad campaign, but also have it in the other types, the phrase and exact. You never, as far as I'm concerned, never ever move a good performing keyword out of the campaign it's in, because there's no guarantee that when you move it somewhere else, it's going to do well. It's like digging up your roses in the garden because you think they will do better somewhere else, and they might not. So if you've got a campaign with, say, too many keywords in it, keep the good ones where they are and get rid of the stuff that's not doing well, because the risk of them performing poorly somewhere else isn't going to be an issue. I hope that's... And we will come to a summary in a moment, but this is something that helps me a lot when I'm managing a lot of people's campaigns, and that's how I structure the campaign names. So these are actual ones that I've got with current customers. I've just blocked out over on the left the actual name of the product. So this tells me it's a sponsored display ad, SDA, and that it's targeting something called a views remarketing product. And it's targeting VCPM, which is paying per 1,000 impressions rather than clicks. And I can see at a glance that I've reactivated this on the 27th of August, 2024. I don't know the reasons why I paused it, just looking at the name, but I know that I've reactivated it. And if it's still active today, which it is, then it's been doing well since then. So on the ad group below, you can see it's got exact, and then it's got some dates and some abbreviations. So that tells me when I'm looking on the 11th of March, I did a significant bid reduction. And then on the 28th of March, I paused 6 of the products that were in that ad campaign because I was requested to by the customer. And then on the 18th of April, I did a significant big reduction on the poor performance. Now, why have I done this? Well, at the campaign level, when I'm looking at 100 campaigns on one page, just by looking at the names, I can see what's actually happening. So Susan says, hoping to make sense out of all this someday soon. Thanks for the info. Yes, it will all become clear, I'm sure. So I'm just trying to give you some tips here that overall you will get a sense of what's going on. It's not something that you have to really think of as a method. It's more of a wisdom. But so if you're naming your ad campaigns in this way, it's telling a story to you as to what's happening. So when you're looking on a page of results, you can see, like I could see, oh, well, I only reactivated this last month or something, so we need to give it a bit more time. Or rather than looking at the ad group and going, well, what big changes did I make last month or last week? I can see that, well, actually, I've just made a significant bid reduction, so I really don't want to do any more. Let's see whether those changes have made a difference over the last week. Yes, so it's a great way of note-taking, yes. So the summary here, we've looked at the keywords are often viewed as groups. What we think of different keywords, the algorithm can look at them and think the same, which can affect how we target them. The algorithm and how it looks at the search term report, the search term someone types in can really affect how it's able to deliver meaningful results to them so that they sell something. So we were looking at wall decor and got lots of different types there rather than a picture. The search volume group together, yes, we've said that. The search terms being aligned to your product through the ad campaigns that you see can help you sell more. And then we've seen working with the algorithm or the keywords that it's giving it to you and aligning to your product and doing a reverse async check and doing keyword checks with software like the AMZScout, that makes your whole life much easier. And you can see already just by structuring things a little bit simpler and cleaner, that can help you save money, and labeling your ad campaigns and ad groups in this kind of format can help save you a lot of time. So we've come to the end of that part. The other two parts are much shorter and I think easier to understand. So have you got any questions before I move on? Silence, people typing very fastly. Right. I'm conscious that we're getting to the end of the time also, so I'll speed things up a little bit. So when we're looking at an ad campaign, at the dashboard where all your campaigns will be, there are key metrics across the top, which are things like click-through rates, number of impressions, number of clicks, and they're all giving you clues as to what's happening between the buyer and your product. So I know a lot of people know what they mean, but what we're trying to be here is like detectives and understand the story of what's happening. So I'm just going to give you some tips on what I do here. So in the middle, we can see the impressions so this is from one of my customers' accounts. And I'm going to explain why we've got these strange budget figures over on the left in a couple of slides. So you might be getting low impressions because your bids are too low. Or you might be targeting keywords that are not super relevant. This is the story of what to do when you see, okay, Mr. Stamper, I'm looking forward to this one. The keyword choice that if it's not super relevant for your product, you might not get too many impressions if the algorithm doesn't believe your product is right for that customer, or it doesn't think you're going to sell for that particular customer. So all these have a story to tell in the number of impressions you get. So you can see the impressions fluctuate from 67,000 up to 880,000 here. So there's quite a difference, but there are things that affect that. What it doesn't tell you is where those impressions are appearing, whether it's page 1 or page 2. So you're not getting the whole story. Then the number of clicks is actually telling you how enticing your product is when people are looking at a page of results and they're only seeing your hero image, the headline image, when they're seeing the title, the number of reviews, when they've got that little window of your product. How they compare that to what their expectations are will determine what they click, or whether they click or whether they don't. So an average click-through rate, which we're going to come to in a moment, is usually around 0.4%. So you can see on the click-through rates here, we've got some great ones. So visitor has said, what would be the best daily budget for a niche product that doesn't have a big search volume? Actually, the daily budget that you give to a campaign has really nothing to do with the type of niche or the category that you're selling in. It has to do with its performance. So I normally start, and it depends really on my type of customer and what the goal is. The minimum I would do is a $30 a day budget. That's because the algorithm, it would probably, depending on the category that you're selling in, that would have enough money to keep the ads running throughout the day. And the chances of you spending the whole of that, especially in the launch period, is very slight. But normally I would begin with $100 for my customers. And it seems that when you give a bigger budget, it seems to excite the algorithm. So you can see that on the top one there, I've given a budget of $5,080. So $5,080 per day. I'll explain the 80 in a moment. The other thing we look at is the top of search. So the top of search means your ads are appearing at the top of page 1. And this can increase the number of clicks by 5 to 8 times, not 5 to 8%. So if you have an average click-through rate of, say, half, you can have a 2.5 to 4% click-through rate, which if you're just trying to divert people to your product listing and you're confident that once they're on it, they're going to buy your product because you've got a great conversion rate, you want to be targeting the top of search. So there's a story here, which you can see if we look at the top 2. The top one has only had 3,500 ad impressions, but has had been on the top of search results 44% of the time it's been advertised. And I've given it a 900% bid adjustment, which is the maximum you can give, meaning that if you have a $1 bid, Amazon can charge you up to $10 as a cost per click for that bid. And if you've got the bid set in the campaign of up and down, so dynamic up and down, which adds another 100%, a $1 bid could become a $20 bid. So you have to be careful. Sometimes the Amazon algorithm sets the dynamic up and down bids as standard, and you have to set it to down only, which was how it used to be before we had this choice. So if I look at the top one, it's had a click-through rate of 6% and has had 19 orders. And the one underneath it has had many more impressions, 20 times the amount, but doesn't have a top of search bid adjustment. It's had a great click-through rate, but 75 orders. That tells me that I've actually reduced the top of search bid adjustment that I had on it. So it did have something, it was getting clicks, and it had a good click-through rate, but it wasn't getting top of search any more than 5%. So 95% of the time that ad was paying more money for the clicks, but not appearing at the top of the page, which is a waste of money. So I hope you found that useful. Now we're going to look at some of the heroes and villains at the ad group level. So here, when we're looking at the bid that we place over in the left in the yellow box and in the middle at the cost per click or in the orange box, that tells you a story. If the algorithm isn't charging you the full amount, then either you're paying the most out of all your competitors, which is probably unlikely because there's so much fluctuation that to have that as a problem or in all of your ad campaigns is highly unlikely. So the chance is here that the algorithm doesn't fully trust your product is going to sell to warrant charging the full amount that you're bidding, where it could be higher up the page. So that might mean there are other people bidding the same amount or similar, but they've sold more units for that keyword and they're just sitting higher. So it could be that you're not going to get in that position, say 1 to 5 in the ad position because of these better sellers without putting a much bigger bid in. So it's not charging you as much. So it's all giving you a little bit of a story. So if you had a $1 bid with a 30-cent cost per click, that's telling you pretty much that the algorithm doesn't really think your product's right for that keyword. So that might highlight a bit of an issue. So I would be looking at the back end of the keyword and the written content to make sure that that is in there in some form or other. And just looking at the results here, the story is that the top 2 campaigns there within this ad group have brought the lion's share of orders. So their contribution to this ad group over 30 days has been 51 orders out of 76. So those keywords are the heroes for me. And the one further down in 4th place is the villain, because it's had 8 orders, so roughly 10%, but at 36% ACOS, which is too high, even though the overall ACOS for the ad group and campaign is just under 14%, which gives me, because there's a number of keywords here in the group, it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, let's just live with this 36% ACOS and not make too many changes and see if it just improves over time. But when we're looking at contribution, which is a key element to whether you change the bid or not, you want to consider how many orders that this ad group has given you compared to the whole orders you've had for that month across all of your ads. So if all of your ads had 100 orders, this one campaign has given you 76. So this campaign and what you do is absolutely vital. But if you've had 1,000 orders, making a little bit of a mistake or being a bit more aggressive with your bids is something that you can afford to do. So, and finally here, the search term tab, which I've already mentioned a little bit, is that if you're finding, like I've got here, that you've had multiple orders in the space of 30 days, and I've got the second one, and is it the second one? The number 6 and the number 3 orders have had such a high conversion rate, 18% and 60%, I would be targeting those at the top of search, hoping to get a 5 or 8 times the amount of clicks. So I'm going to get a lot more sales. So basically what we're doing is looking at the data that the algorithm's giving us and matching that to what's happening with our products and how the customers are buying it, and then targeting and building a strategy around that. So that's what we do. So that helps you to make more meaningful decisions there. Now, I mentioned so you can see here on the left, the hero budgets have got very high budgets. The villains have got very low, and the ones I'm yet to decide on have got some low stroke middle budgets. The reason I've put 5,080 is telling me that this ad campaign, so if I'm looking at a page of all the ad campaigns, I can see at a glance that this one has sold 80 units in the last 30 days, and the ACOS was so low that I've given it a big budget. Whereas in the middle of the villains, that one sold 2 products in 30 days at such a bad ACOS that I'm squeezing all the budget out of it, and I'm making bid adjustments. And the reason that I do this is that the next time I come to make a bid adjustment to that campaign, I want to see how the last week has gone and whether, if it's suddenly performed better. If it has, I will give it more money. If it hasn't, I will consider pausing the campaign or doing a deeper dive and see what's going wrong. So I hope that makes sense. Now, this might be a little bit head stretching, but it's something that you need to know. The Amazon dashboard with all your data on it and how many orders you've got in your advertising has what's called a 7-day attribution window, which I'll explain what that is in a minute if you don't know. And your search term report, in the columns, it will say something like orders or units, 7 days. So this means the attribution window is if someone clicks on your ad today and within the next 7 days they come back and buy your product, that order is attributed to your original click. This means that when you're looking at your ads today to make some bid adjustments, you need to bear in mind that for the next week, there could be extra sales added on to your costs that would make the ACost, the advertising costs, look much better. And that, as a consequence, would mean you might not need to change the bid. So if you're altering bids, and some people use software that changes the bid every day or per hour for day parting and different strategies, you can really mess up your advertising if you're not careful. And the reason I brought this up is that the Amazon algorithm allows for a 30-day window of attribution. So anyone that clicks today and orders over the next month, that sale can be reattributed to that original click, which is great for your costs. But if you're making decisions, it can mean that you're missing out on half of the. So for my customers, when I'm doing the PPC reports, I normally do it in the middle of the month to try and have at least the lion's share of this data to be correct. I can see using my reports what the 7-day window says and what the 30-day window says, and there's normally between 8 and 25% difference. So on average, around 20% extra sales added to the campaigns that you can be looking at today and trying to work out your data and what to do. So I do bid changes normally once a week or sometimes twice a week, depending on what's actually happening. So I hope that I'm trying to create space. And when I'm looking at a keyword, especially one that's got a high search volume or has had a lot of orders, I'm very careful and very aware of what it's been selling over the last 7 days and the last 30 days and the last 90 days and how I measure it. So the mini summary here is your ad campaigns can tell you a story and they're actually communicating this. But if you're not aware of what they mean and what they're telling you, you can't really make those strategies. So this is a really beautiful way of, you don't necessarily need to know the different methods that you would find on YouTube videos or courses or whatever. You just need to know what the algorithm's telling you, and then it's quite obvious what you want and what you need to do. So we are on the final section, which is very short, about some tips and tricks. Are there any extra questions before I head on to that section? Or are we all okay? Because this has probably gone on about 5 or 10 minutes longer than I expected so far. But I've got all day or all evening as it is here. So I'm going to crack on. So if you do these with your ads, you're going to be doing something that hardly anybody's using. And also the last one is about the product itself, about how to create what's called a canonical URL address, which is good for search engines. So here is the first tip, and this is called a triple indexed keyword. And I'll tell you what that is in a moment with an example. So these get traffic, i.e. eyes on your product, super fast. The algorithm finds it difficult to resist them. So this is basically a word that's tripled and put into the ad as a keyword. It drives a lot of search terms, a lot of new search terms. And if the algorithm doesn't really know fully what you're selling, or there's a bit of a gray area, this can be a bad thing because there can be a lot of irrelevant search terms. So you can't just put this ad together and forget about it for a week, because you'll come back to it and see that it spent a lot of money and you've probably wasted a lot of money. So they're quite intense at the beginning, but once they get going, they're amazing. So you need a lot of management. You start off really going in a lower bid. So if your regular bid, say $1, or your average cost per click at the ACost you want is something like $1, then I would go in at 40 cents as a bid. And you need to be careful about, blocking the irrelevant keywords by targeting them as negatives. So let's have a look at one as an example. They only work in broad campaigns. So brush, brush, brush would be a single keyword. You would enter that into Amazon as if it was silicone dog brush, but it's the 3 words repeated as they are there. And the algorithm is excited by that for whatever reason, and it will drive traffic fast. So if that's what you want and you want to get more eyes onto your listing, start a broad campaign and only put one of these keywords in it. So if you've got, I don't know, dog, 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 put that in a different campaign, because these can get going fast. And then you want to be looking at the search terms that have converted and target them somewhere else. Or you can, if there's been enough of them, target them in this campaign, stop the brush, brush, brush keyword and put that in a different one somewhere else. Now, here's something else that I worked out. This is the same type of keyword. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But this one for me is even better, especially if you want to control your money. This is the same kind of keyword using hyphens. Hyphens are really powerful in Amazon, and a lot of people don't realize this. So again, it's broad campaigns, and again, it's using triple keywords, but it gets a broad campaign to work more like a phrase campaign. So it's a bit more controlled in the search terms that it gets activating your ads. But as we saw earlier, where a phrase campaign might only get 30% of the market of active traffic, a broad campaign can get 50%. So if you're aware of sponsored brand ads like video ads and the banners that you see at the top of the page, they can add a modifier in, which is like a little plus sign that you put next to the word that you want to be part of the search term. So if that was silicone dog brush and I want dog to be in there, I would just put a little plus sign next to the word dog, and every search term in that ad would have dog in it. So I know that something relevant would be happening. You can't do that with normal sponsored product ads. This is only brand ads. But using these hyphens in a broad campaign really works the same way. So, example, dog hyphen brush, dog hyphen brush, dog hyphen brush. 3 keywords, but as one keyword. Don't just put dog hyphen brush into Amazon or it won't work. I mean, you will get traffic, but it only is a normal keyword. We're trying to get the broad campaigns to work in a better way than normal. So these 3 keywords with spaces in between each keyword is a triple keyword, but with a hyphen. The algorithm will be excited about it, but not as much as a normal one. So you have a little bit more control and you can control the search terms. So I've worked out that the longest you want to use is a 3-phrase keyword. Once you get into 4 keywords, then it's too many words for the algorithm to accept as a target keyword. So it might be silicone hyphen dog hyphen brush and repeat it. And that will get you a lot more traffic than just a normal regular keyword. Now, this is one of my favorite ones. And I worked this out. I think I worked it out in a dream. So this often happened to me when I got my ideas, because I've been looking at the algorithm so much, and I read Amazon.science website most weeks. So my head's full of this stuff. The canonical URL address is this, what I've highlighted here, underlining it. So this is how Amazon puts your product into its catalog. You've got the ASIN reference over on the right, Amazon.com website on the left, and in the middle are these words that are search words. Now, this is for a silicone dog brush. And as you might see, you can't see either silicone, dog, or brush in those words. And Google especially, but also Bing, they use these words to bring up their results. And around 23% of all shopping on Amazon actually comes from Google originally. So it's a good idea to get these right, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. Now, there is a well-known way of putting 5 keywords in with a space and a hyphen, but I've got a better way of doing it. So I'm going to explain that to you now. So when you're first putting your product into your Amazon inventory, meaning its description and its title and the price, even if your stock's not there, you put your title as in, I've done it here. You don't have any gaps between the words. So you're having only hyphens there. So if your brand is Pets & Co., you might want to have that at the front. Otherwise, you don't bother with that. But then you would put silicone hyphen dog hyphen brush hyphen 4 hyphen hairy hyphen dogs. The algorithm, its responsibility is to find 5 keywords in your title. The first 2 it expects to be your brand, and then the other 3 it just takes at random, which, as you could see in the past in the previous one, it didn't have any good search engine optimization keywords in there, so no one was finding it. So this is a title for your product and nothing to do with ads right now, this final one. This is when you're adding your product into Amazon, where you're editing the product description and its bullet points and things like that, where you put the title into it initially. You don't want to have any spaces. So you want to approach this knowing the keywords that are the best for your product and the ones that have the highest search volume and what order they get put in mostly in Amazon. And then, because the algorithm is trying to find 5 keywords in your title, right? Because there's no space between these words, it only thinks that it's finding one keyword. So it puts the whole thing into your URL. So however many, I'm going to come to the book in a moment because that's different. However many keywords you want in there, you could have 12 or 13, but I find that 6 to 8 words tends to be the best. Then whatever order you want and whichever keywords you want, they then get put as your in your catalog as your product URL address, and that's it. And in time, it normally takes around maybe 2 or 3 months with Google. This will start getting traffic and directing people to Amazon, which Amazon absolutely loves. And this will help with your organic ranking. So after 2 or 3 days, when the product has got its URL and it's in the catalog, whether it's in stock or not doesn't matter, you want to change the title back to something that makes sense to somebody who's reading it, just a regular title. And then that's all you need to do. Now, if you already have products in your inventory, whether they're in stock yet or not, but you've put the title in there and everything, the algorithm will already have given you a canonical URL address. And the way to find out what that is just to search for your own products as if you were a shopper and then click on it and it will come at the top of the page. Now, most of the seller support assistants don't believe you can change this, but you can. So you want to keep communicating with a different seller support until you find somebody that says, yeah, I'll do it for you. And they will put those in. So yes, I do know that this this presentation is going to be a video that's made available. And I believe that people are going to be emailed about this. So I don't know whether someone in the technical department can confirm that, but there will be a video of this. I just don't know how long it's going to be available. But, either you can print it out, I guess, but a lot of this will start making sense the more you start practicing with it, and it will still click into place. So, yeah, we've covered that there. So we've looked overall at understanding the Amazon algorithm on how it views keywords and the difficulties it has sometimes with matching the right products to a person's search, and how we can help it do that for our product. We've looked at how structuring your ad campaigns and the keywords in it can save you money or cost you money. And we've looked at the stories that your ad campaigns can tell you. So Jenny's just said that the replay will be available within 24 hours of the event. The visitor has said, for perfume product, is it recommended to add perfume notes as well in the title? And so we can have the product and we can put the hyphens and then to call the support. Right, so I'll just clear this up. So I guess by the notes, you mean I like how it smells, whether it's vanilla or something, or rose or lily of the valley. Yes, I would have that in the title. And if you're doing the canonical URL address trick, which I've just shown you, then I would definitely put that in there, because somebody might be typing on Google or on Amazon with the fragrance of it first. So when you're telling Amazon seller support that you want your canonical URL address, your search URL, to be different than what it already is, you don't have to mention hyphens. You just tell them, I want these 5 keywords. They won't know of a way to get more than 5 in there. But I want these 5 keywords in this order in my search URL. Can you update it? Some will say no, some will say yes. In books, because the title of a book is often, well, it is much more significant than the title that you give to a product. there's less flexibility over what you do with the book. So I've tested this with a book, and it didn't change the actual URL. And the actual URL as part of that is less of an issue or less of an advantage than a product, because it's more difficult to find a product when you're typing in something like, I don't know, fireproof bag. You don't know whose is going to come up. But if you know the title of a book, your book's going to come up. Or it's only when you're searching for something that's a little bit vague, like I want what are the 10 best self-help books? Then even the title and the URL might not be enough to get you up there in Google. So I hope that answers that question.